Hey guys, today I want to do a video on, are Filipinos really legally responsible for their parents financially, and how does it affect expats? This is a really good question, considering Filipina P did something on this a while back. I happened to be breezing through, and I usually don't check out her stuff that much, but this one caught my eye and I watched it. She had an attorney on there, and I wanted to talk about it because a long time ago I had a talk with an attorney about this, and I got a totally different vibe and answer out of the attorney that I talked to. And I want to go through this because there's so many caveats to this that it gets kind of ridiculous, and it will affect some of us, but most of us it won't, and for many different reasons. Okay, and what I want to talk about is this: a lot of guys over here don't understand the fact that culturally, if your girlfriend's parents are still alive, you got to kind of help them if they need help. Most of the parents over here don't go after their children if they don't have any money, or if they want them to be happy, and if they're just making it. And sometimes all they need is like maybe $100 a month or something like that, and help and aid, and that's nothing. Now, if they really wanted to go after somebody that had a lot of money, let's say the Filipina had a job or what have you, or whatever. And this is why a lot of Filipinas, they get married, they go back to the States. The ones that go back to the States, what they do is they start sending tons of cash back to their family because they feel like they're responsible. They're the breadwinner of the family because they're in the U.S., they're working, they got all kinds of money. The husband's working, he's an engineer or whatever it may be, and they send money back. And usually the husband doesn't care in some cases. And some of these people, they really feel like they're obligated to help their family, and that's a nice thing to do. I mean, I would help people in my family if they needed help too. And we have to kind of consider, what would we do if that was our family? But I want to get into the legal aspects of this because there's a lot of questions that go along with this. And this video here is going to be a little bit longer than usual, probably, because I'm going to go into all the different things. First of all, is if you're living with a woman and you live with her for a long time, there's a thing called common law marriage. Now, all of a sudden, when that common law marriage thing clicks in, all of a sudden you find yourself technically married to this woman, possibly, and that could be a problem because all of a sudden the family comes along and they drag you into court. Now, the chances of this happening are very slim, but it could happen, and I've seen families over here go after expats that were just living with a girl and come knocking on the door and park themselves there and say, hey, we're not leaving till we get some money, to the girl. And the guy kept saying, no. And finally they left because they knew they weren't going to get a nickel out of the guy. And some families are like that, unfortunately. And it's very sad, both for the Filipina and the expat, that has to happen. But the Filipinas, some of the Filipinas, they just move on and don't want to be responsible for that, and for good reason. But it is part of their culture. Some Filipinas have left that culture. They've said, I'm not going to supply my parents and family with money because they worked all their lives. They're responsible for themselves. But there is that law. Okay. Now, when you get married to a woman over here, obviously, if you're living here, you're probably going to be responsible for that somewhat. Now, how much? Probably enough to just give them maybe food and housing or what have you, something like that, and maybe some medical care. And if you can't afford it, obviously, I don't think the courts are going to go after you for that if you cannot afford it, because you're responsible for yourself first, and so isn't your Filipina. So there's a lot of things to think about here, and legally there's a lot of questions that law leaves unanswered. But a single guy over here doesn't really have to worry about it too much. Now, here's another thing. A lot of guys over here tend to live with women that are still married. They've been separated for 5 years or 7 years or whatever. Their husband has moved on, is living with another woman. Usually what happens then is, once the guy is living with another woman, that guy is not going to go after you. He's not going to go after you because you can go after him, the wife can go after him. It brings up a lot of legal questions for both parties, and it makes it difficult and harder. So it's nothing is going to happen with it. They're not going to go after you. And also what happens in this case here is the common law marriage thing doesn't come up. So if you live with that woman for 10 years and she's still married, or 20 years and the woman's still married, guess what? There's no common law marriage thing that clicks into place there because of the fact she's still technically married. Now, am I telling you to live with a married woman because of that? No. But also the family really can't touch you either because of the common law thing. So we have that. So there's a lot of little niches and caveats here. But I sat down and I talked with an attorney about this a long time ago. And I remember talking to this person about this. And what happened was the attorney said that 99% of the people will not go after. They very rarely ever see a case like this. It rarely ever happens because, number one, the parents don't have the money to hire an attorney to go after the girl and to go after the husband or whatever. They just don't do it. So they can get a public attorney and they can go after you. They can, if they want to. But the chances of it happening are very slim. Most people don't want to sue their kid. They don't want to drag their kid into court. They don't want to cause that problem and that grief for their child, because they love the kid. They still want to see the kid. And once you sue your daughter or your son for money, they're not going to come back and see you. They're not going to want to take care of you. They're not going to want to be there, at your funeral, or if you're in the hospital or something like that. Once you open up that can of worms, it opens up another can of worms. And a lot of guys probably saw that video that Filipina P put out there and said, wow, I don't want to go to the Philippines. I don't think there's any worries or concerns really in most cases. Like I said, a lot of guys come over here, they go with a married woman, and if they're with that woman for 10 years and they don't get an annulment, what happens is that family can't touch you. And that woman really can't go after you for anything either because of the fact that she's still married. Okay, so that's one of the things that you don't have to worry about. Now, if the woman's single and you're living with her for, that period where the common law marriage thing kicks in, it's a whole different ballpark, because then she can go after you if she ever leaves you, and the family can go after you for to supply money for them if they get sick or they need money for food or what have you. That's when that stuff can start kicking in. And if you're married, God help you, because if you're living here in the Philippines, then the laws are probably going to apply to you, in just about all cases. And you have to be really, really careful of what you do here, because a lot of guys are really worried about this thing where they have to supply money for the families, and they don't like that. And they come over here and say, well, I'm never going to do that. My girlfriend better tell me, if we're going to get married, that I don't have to supply her family with any money. Well, legally, if you're living here, you fall under their laws. Now, but the chances of it happening, and I would not bring up that law because a lot of people don't know about the law. I wouldn't be pushing it in their face or anything like that. I would just stay quiet about it, because because once people know about this stuff, and it is out there now, unfortunately, that it is going to open up a can of worms for a lot of different people here in the Philippines when they see that. Do I think that people will push on it? You might get a few, but you don't want to be the one that is being, going pushed on for that type of money. You don't want to be that guy, But keep all these things in your mind when you do get married. And I'm not telling guys by any means to go after a married woman that has a boyfriend that's living with some girl or something. I'm not telling you that. I just know that a lot of guys over here are in that situation because I've seen it, and that's a case where you're probably going to be left alone. Now, can they go after her? And is she going to say, hey, honey, I need some money because they're going after me? If she's not working, and she goes into court and says, hey, I'm not working, I'm living with a foreigner, and he supplies me with my food and stuff like that, they're not gonna go after you. So don't worry about it. In most cases, I think this is a non-issue, and people are, a lot of vloggers make an issue out of it and say, well, things are changing over here. That law's been on the books for a long time. Trust me, nothing's changed over here. If you make an agreement with your girlfriend, pretty much she can pretty much stick to that. Is there a chance that the family might go after you? Yeah, there's a slight chance, but I think it's almost nil to none, that it's going to happen. It just doesn't happen over here much. When I talked with that attorney, the attorney told me it rarely ever happens. Rarely ever happens. It's only if the parents got in a fight with the kids and they don't talk or something like that. It was their only kids, and then they go after them because they don't care. They got nothing to lose, because they don't care if the kid talks with them again because the kid's not talking to them now. That's the cases that you have to worry about. So if your girlfriend is talking to her family and you meet the family and they're really friendly, you can usually tell if they're hitting you up for money all the time, then you should probably move on. A lot of these guys that are coming over here for poverty-stricken women, those are the ones you have to worry about, because those are the ones that are going to be showing up on your doorstep, like one of the people that we had here. Though, if the woman has no money, there's a good chance that family is going to be hitting you up for money all the time. And if you're dating a girl and you meet the family and they're all working and they don't hit you up for any money or anything, you're pretty good. Is it possible that sometimes they might ask you for some money or something? If they ask you for some money, it's up to you, and you can always say no. You don't have to say yes. Sometimes Filipinas get moody and they might say, well, honey, they really need it. You got to give it to them. You still have the right to say no. Let people be mad. They'll get over it. And if they're not going to get over it, that's probably a relationship you don't want to be in. So I just want to throw all this out there because it definitely leaves a lot of food for thought here for a lot of expats that are over here now that she put that out there. It's not really something that you really have to worry about, number one, and a lot of people's situations pretty much dictate that it's not going to happen to you. I would say a good amount of the guys over here are with women that need an annulment. I'd say probably maybe even 50%. And the other 50% usually go after younger women. They tend to, that are the ones that aren't married. But guys that go after older women, usually they need an annulment. Or, there's very few that have never been married or did get the annulment. So if you're going with an older woman, usually you're gonna have to pay for an annulment for the woman. And usually when you're going with an older woman, here's the other thing: most older women, their parents are already gone or they're almost gone, and that's sometimes the added benefit of being with an older woman, say in their 50s or 60s. In most cases, their parents are already deceased over here, and it's unfortunate for them. But I'm saying it's fortunate for some of the expats, because you don't have to worry about that monetary issue of the family hitting you up for money because dad or mom is in the hospital or something like that. And remember, this is their culture. Respect their culture too. And when you come over here and you spit on their culture and say, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, you kind of have to pick up a little bit of the slack. I wouldn't be the breadwinner for the family or anything, and tell your girlfriend that, look, if you're going to help your parents, have Johnny, Susie, and Ramon all chip in too, because it's only fair. I'll chip in my percentage, they can chip in their percentage. How much is the bill? Show me the bill. That's the way you kind of deal with it. Are you responsible for the whole bill? No, you're not. You're responsible for what you can afford. And when I was speaking with that lawyer kind of told me, if you can't afford it, you don't have to pay it. Because if you go before the court, they're not going to make you poverty-stricken to help somebody else that's poverty-stricken. They're not going to rob from Peter to pay Paul. So, the court systems are pretty decent on the way that they treat the people here. I've used the court system over here, and they're pretty fair and balanced over here. I've heard of other cases. They're usually pretty decent with people, and they have a lot of respect for foreigners also. And they understand we come from a different place, and they understand that we are foreigners. Some things we don't have to abide by because we're from a foreign land, and some laws we do over here. When you marry somebody and you're living here, it does make it different. Now, when you're a tourist here, I'm not sure how that works. If you're a permanent resident here, that probably ticks it up a little bit too as far as what you'd have to pay. But if you're a tourist here, I don't think they can make you do much because of the fact that you're just a tourist here. You can go home at any given time, you know. But if you're a permanent resident here, that also probably brings in a lot more legal obligations that you should probably talk with your attorney. And remember, you know, this here is just all stuff that, you know, you really need to talk to an attorney about in the end and ask them, because they all, you know, it depends on your situation. Remember, and this is my disclaimer, always talk to an attorney when you have an issue. You know, don't go by any vloggers out there. Don't go by Filipina P. Don't go by the attorney. Don't go by me. Sit down, talk with an attorney, and the attorney will tell you, for your case specifically, what matters and how much you're obligated to help the family. God bless, guys. Take care. I hope that helps a lot of people. God bless.